I started Mera Surfboards back in 2011. I was a undercover detective for the St. Augustine Beach Police Department, and my position was assigned. I was a task force agent assigned to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, and um, I spent a couple of years there. And one of the fateful incident that started this whole chain of events was I went to do a undercover drug buy out in Pomona Park, Putnam County, and the deal went bad from the get-go. It was myself, my other undercover partner, and then we were scheduled to purchase an ounce of cocaine and two black market guns from two other individuals. So we had made some phone call conversations leading up to the event, and then we finally had a time frame and a place to meet. And so we drove 45 minutes from where our base was to this remote area in Lake Como, Pomona Park area of Putnam County. I get out of the passenger side vehicle, just really upset that we had this location that law enforcement couldn't control. And they didn't know we were law enforcement, but anytime you're in law enforcement, you want to control the investigation. You want to control the area that you're at. So we couldn't control the area. We get out there, and it just went bad from the get-go. I was upset about it because we were, out in the middle of nowhere, and exchanged greetings. And as soon as we exchanged greetings, I was presented with a handgun, or actually it was a MAC-10 machine gun that was pointed at my face. The guy pulled it out of his waistband. He had his back turned to me at the beginning. He pulled it out of his waistband, pulled the trigger, or locked the slide back to the rear, let it go. And as soon as I saw the gun in my face, I started backing up. I went to where I knew my gun was, and I pulled out my gun and I started shooting. I ended up killing one guy. I ended up putting a bullet in the back of the other guy's neck. And as I started shooting, I feel this very stinging, loud numbness in my right leg. And it felt like I had just gotten hit by a 90-mile-an-hour fastball from Roger Clemens. And I immediately went to the ground. I couldn't use my legs at all. I propped myself back up. I pointed my gun back in the direction of the gunfire, and I realized that my gun was out of bullets. And at that time, I didn't have an extra magazine with me. And during that gunfight, I'm yelling out our code words for our backup team. And backup team arrives, and I prop myself up, and I'm telling my cover team, I said, hey, there's a guy that just ran off into there. It ended up being 3 against 2. And I told him, I said, there's a guy that just ran off into the woods. And I said, I can wiggle my toes so I know I'm not paralyzed. I can't feel any blood on the back of my leg, so I don't know if it was a through and through or if the bullet still lodged in my leg. I said, I need a bottle of water, I need a cell phone. I had spent a couple of years in the military prior to that, doing reconnaissance missions and everything like that. So my military training kind of kicked in along with my law enforcement training. So they gave me some water. I was conscious, I was breathing, I was telling people, giving them the scenario of the lay of the land out there. And I called my wife and I said, hey, I said in a calm, cool, and collected voice, I said, somebody's coming to get you. I'll meet you at the hospital. And she goes, what happened? I said, I've been shot. And the first words out of her mouth were, are you kidding me? And I said, no, unfortunately, I'm not kidding you. So about an hour later, I end up in DeLand, Volusia County, in a hospital, and I went into surgery right away, and they spent about 8 hours in surgery. They pulled a .380 bullet out of my right leg, and they put a rod in between my femur. My femur had broke, and they put a rod in there to fuse it back together. About a week and a half later, I end up getting to go to the home, and I'm just, pretty much couch-ridden, bed-ridden, out of work, can't do anything until I start recuperating my leg. So I get on the internet, and I've always been in love with surfing, the industry mainly, and surfboards. And so I started researching, surfboard shaping. Found this company called Greenlight Surf Supply based out of New Jersey, and they were selling do-it-yourself kits that you could buy, and they'd ship it to you online, and you could shape your own surfboard in your garage kind of thing. Well, you know, I went to physical therapy, and I was just having a hard time mentally with the whole shooting aspect of things, and I didn't want to turn to pain medicine. I didn't want to turn to alcohol, and I wanted to do it the right way. So, and I wasn't big on, you know, going to therapy. And I said, you know what, I'm going to do this my way. And so I went back, to Greenlight Surf Supply, and I bought that kit, and it came in the mail, and I hobbled out to the garage. I built, you know, some racks that are similar to what my board right now is sitting on. The second I laid my hands on the surfboard that I got from Greenlight, it was like the world stopped. There was no issues with bills. There was no issues with fights with the wife. There was no issues with kids. It was just the world stopped, and my mind went clear, and I was at home, literally and emotionally and therapeutically. I was at home with my hands on a surfboard, a piece of blank, just pretty much like this. So I went back and I just taught myself how to shape a surfboard. YouTube videos, forums, you know, asking around Facebook, you know, how do I do this? How do I do that? And I went out and I began shaping, and my first board turned out horrible, completely horrible. So I cut it up and you know, decided to start over. And somebody once said to me, one of the shapers that I'd met, he says, you know, every step is a process, and you perfect the first step before you go to the next step. And so I took that to heart. And so from that moment on, everything that I do stepwise, I make sure that it's perfect, or I prep for it, or I lay my materials out if I'm going to use these materials or whatever. So I did that, and I've shaped. I'm not the greatest shaper in the world. I don't have a lot of surfboards under my name. The ones that I do have under my name, there's only like 11 of them that I've shaped for business. I've shaped a couple for businesses. I've shaped some for friends and family. I've shaped some for, you know, people I've never met before. But the thing that separates me, I think, from the majority of the surfboard shapers in the industry is that my story carries along with how my craft comes out. I'm self-taught in this industry. I'm not a well-known person, but everything that I do on a surfboard is passionate. I'm putting my kids' names on my board. And if I'm not passionate about my kids, then I'm not going to be passionate about the board that I give you, or I sell you, or your business is displaying in the front office. So, you know, that's one of the things that I'm proud of, and that's why I went with Mera, because Mera, Madison, Ethan, Riley, and Abigail, they got me through that time frame when I was at my lowest. And just the thought of them knowing that I had that to live for, I had my 4 children to live for, carried me on, and it'll continue to carry me on from here to eternity. And so you may get a surfboard for me down the road, and it may have a beard hair in there, or it may have a small drop of blood from where I cut myself, you know, on one of my machines shaping your board. But at the end of the day, you know that I shaped your board by my hands. I did everything from start to finish with my hands, minimal tools. It's not coming from China. It's coming from here in this garage.